Hello, welcome, and thank you for being a part of this WorkSafe webinar, WorkSafe 101 for High Schools, Preparing Young People for Safe Work. My name is Chris McKenzie from WorkSafe's media team. I'll be your host for today's session. WorkSafe 101 for schools was released at the start of 2023. This important foundational program has already provided an informed, engaging and supportive approach to preparing young people for entry into the workforce. Working collaboratively with the Department of Education and select secondary schools, the program has engaged over 70 schools and more than 1,000 participants. Strongly aligning with core prevention principles, we'll hear some case studies today from two groups who have first-hand experience of the program and its benefits. And we'll showcase the results of the early work and talk about the opportunity for schools to access the learning material to support their curriculum. Today, I'm being joined by three experts. Alicia Crabtree is Program Manager, Worker Interventions in the Health and Safety Business Unit here at WorkSafe Victoria. Hi, Alicia.
Chris.
Marina Welch is a teacher and online content designer at the Gordon TAFE. Hi, Marina.
Hello, good morning, afternoon.
And Rowena Archer is a careers and vet teacher at Braybrook College. Hi, Rowena.
Hello, how are you? Good.
I'm well, thanks. Thank you so much for joining us today. So we're going to be exploring the following key topics with our experts in this webinar: why young people should understand workplace health and safety as they start their working lives, the ways we can encourage them to speak up if they feel unsafe, and how teachers can use the program's great resources to help get their students comfortable, confident, and work ready. Then we're going to be opening it up for your questions via the Q&A box on your screen. You are more than welcome to start entering your questions from now so they are ready at the end of the webinar. In the meantime, let's get the ball rolling. Across Victoria, in a range of sectors, young workers are considered to be at an increased risk of a workplace injury due to their limited work and life experience. Throughout 2022, WorkSafe accepted 615 claims from workers aged 19 or younger, including 264 claims from casual or part-time workers and 185 from apprentices. These days, we are all more aware that young people are reticent to speak up. They'd rather leave a job than complain. So those numbers we can assume are just the tip of the iceberg. That's where WorkSafe 101 comes into its own. WorkSafe 101 includes a number of resources co-designed with Victorian secondary school teachers to help educate and inform young workers about their rights and responsibilities when it comes to workplace safety. To complement classroom learning for students between years 9 and 12. So Alicia, welcome. You've got a video here that's going to kind of set the scene for us.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I'd love to share a video before we start digging deeper, and it gives a great overview of WorkSafe 101 for high schools.
A safe workspace is like an ecosystem where everyone plays their part. Your employer, supervisor, WorkSafe, and you. The laws and regulations that create this ecosystem are in place so everyone is kept physically and mentally safe. And wherever you work, a safe environment is your right and what you should expect. So play your part by following the rules and speaking up if you spot something unsafe.
Thanks, Alicia. That's a great video and summarises the issues very nicely. First question to you: why did WorkSafe develop this program, and why do we think it's so important that young people are supported to be safe at work?
We identified there's an opportunity to reduce and prevent workplace injuries before or as young workers are starting to enter the workforce, and that's through the education setting. Our aim is to do this by improving the awareness of occupational health and safety rights and responsibilities, illustrating to young workers what their support networks are, and exploring the channels and how they can connect and learn more about how they can stay safe in the workplace. The current state is that we know students have a really low understanding of who WorkSafe is and what their rights and responsibilities are when they start working in a workplace. So for us, the aim was to teach them before or as they're entering the workforce about WorkSafe, who we are, how we can help, and what they need to know about working in that new environment.
Such a great idea, Alicia. How did WorkSafe go about designing this program?
This program was, like many COVID babies, a bit of a program of passion. For us, we initially wanted to define what the problem was. We sought to review all the literature. We sought out qualitative interviews. Teachers and careers advisors were really generous with their time during that period. We also mapped out all the existing resources because we know teachers are very resourceful and seek out lots of information to include in their programs. And we also had ways of engaging with students to get their feedback on what their knowledge was at the time and how they're engaging information. From this, we were able to define what the problem was, and we saw that there was a lack of engagement in OH&S resources by the young people, and the existing content that was available was quite dated, it was wordy, repetitive, all the things that really disengage the learners and those reading the content, and they didn't feel it was relevant to them. So we also, in exploring this space, identified we needed to ensure we had support for the rural and regional areas. The culturally diverse learners also had access to meaningful content, and that all of the content also met the accessibility requirements of the Department of Education. And also the bonus was that teachers then had a chance to engage with the content as well to refresh their knowledge of workplace health and safety and know where their rights and responsibilities sat as well. So from here, we developed the concept through co-design. As you mentioned earlier, we did work with a lot of teachers who were really generous with their time. We also connected with Department of Education, the Victorian Curriculum Authority, and also the teachers we connected with during exploration were then willing to be part of the pilot program, which we ran, which was fantastic.
Some great planning there, Alicia. So once we had the prototype, how did WorkSafe go about testing it?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we were able to run a pilot with this project, which was really important because we weren't going to assume that we had the product right and ready to go from the beginning. We wanted to test it with our audience, get some teachers to use it within the curriculum they were delivering, and also have students ideally pick it apart for us. So we worked with an amazing learning design company who then created the assets for us, particularly the e-learning modules. We then went through the pilot, we tested it. Teachers chose which assets they wanted to use, and we got lots of feedback from both teachers and students. And we also, through this, found out what was effective in the resources, where we'd hit the mark and where there was an opportunity for us to make an improvement. As I said, got lots of feedback, some really candid comments, which was brilliant. And from that, we then made the right revisions to make sure we improved accessibility, we improved the way that students could relate to the characters in the imagery, and also made sure that we created the videos to then capture the highlights to help recaps of learning sessions easy for teachers. And then as well, we released it earlier this year. So we've been pretty busy with this program.
Absolutely, Alicia. Some great background there. Just a reminder, if you do have any questions about WorkSafe 101, we're going to get to them at the end of the webinar, but you can pop them in the chat box right now. So keep those questions coming through. Alicia, before we get on to Rowena and Marina to hear some firsthand experience of the program, we might just get some of those poll results. You might remember at the top of the webinar, we asked the question, what is the most important thing a secondary school student should know as they join the workforce? And asked you, the audience, to pick an answer. Let's go through some of those results. So we've got 13% currently saying how to identify a risk. We've got 15% saying what to do if they have a concern. 27% are saying the most important thing is what their own responsibilities would be to help make their workplace safe. But the top answer and the top response so far at 45% is the most important thing for a secondary school student to know is feeling comfortable in speaking up. Alicia, is that a good result?
Yeah, that's great. That really rings true for us. And we know it's a big challenge for a young person to, feel confident to raise a workplace health and safety issue. And how do you put that into practice?
Excellent. We'll get back to your poll responses, so keep those coming through as we move through the webinar. Over to you now, Marina. Let's look at this program in practice. You've got 9 schools enrolled in the program. What were the challenges you were looking to overcome at the Gordon TAFE specifically?
Well, our program delivers career previews on site at our campus, and a lot of our spaces are really high risk. So we want to prepare students for coming onto our campus safely, to be able to identify risks and hazards, and also to prepare them going into the workplace. So they're at entry level. A lot of them are getting their first jobs, sometimes their second jobs as well, and it is a learning experience to understand how to keep themselves safe. Also, I would add that, a really good amount of engagement on our online space was always going to be a challenge with these young learners. They do tend to fall asleep when we mention OH&S, like, oh. So having the tools that WorkSafe gave us and the element of clicking in those beautiful artistic graphics and colours really spoke and appealed to our learners.
Yeah. And what kind of results have you seen so far, Marina?
Well, they love the WorkSafe thing because they click. Like, clicking is the magic thing with all of these teenage people. And we are seeing that they're starting to understand that they have rights. They're also identifying WorkSafe Victoria much more readily. And we're seeing them actually refer to WorkSafe Victoria more often than they did before. And so that, I think, is a win in itself.
Absolutely, in building that awareness. Thank you, Marina. I'd like to bring in Rowena now. I guess one of the issues that's most important here is confidence for kids involved, knowing that what workplace safety is and how important it is that they speak up. What's your cohort of year 9 to 12s look like, as well as improved awareness? How has WorkSafe 101 helped their confidence?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. That's a great question. My school is a very large school in the western suburbs of Melbourne. We have a very diverse community here, a number of students from various areas around the world. So this program's been really good to educate them in the aspects of safety, particularly some students don't necessarily have role models at home who may be working at present. So it's been really good to be able to do some additional work to educate them on the importance of safety in the workplace. We've found it to be a really engaging program, as Marina intimated. All of our students have found it to be fantastic to work with.
And what kind of results are you seeing at Braybrook, Rowena?
All of our year 10s were on work experience this year, and we found the program to be very good in terms of engaging them to learn additional skills in regard to safety. So it's been fantastic.
Excellent. Alicia, coming back to you now, some really good feedback from Rowena and Marina there, and it looks like this program's starting to get results. Can you tell us a little bit more about what's in the program and how it works so well?
Yeah, great. We've developed a number of resources that can be delivered in a multitude of ways. And we've also covered the breadth of topics that we felt it's really important that we tackle. Obviously, physical hazards are an easy option for us to start with, but it was really important that we address the psychosocial hazards. It's really important that we transition that knowledge from the school environment into the work environment for young workers. And one of our videos is a great overview of that. I'd love to show it now if we can.
Your workplace has a big impact on how you feel. Working long hours, feeling stressed out, or not getting the support you need can leave you feeling mentally and physically burnt out. Sometimes these feelings follow us home, and we can't switch off. Your mental health is just as important as your physical health, and feeling this way is not okay. If work is getting you down, speak up. We're in this together.
Great. Hopefully that also gives a highlight of some of the imagery that we use, which is woven all the way through the e-learning modules. With the modules, we've created 3. Each of them take about 15 minutes. So hopefully that works within the classroom setting, or maybe it's something that the students do in their own time. Within the e-learning modules as well, we wanted to create that engaging content, and Marina highlighted, it's graphically got lots going on. We incorporate a lot of social media references that are relevant. Hopefully they won't date too soon for us. And then it also gave the students the opportunity to click through and engage with the content. So reading through different scenarios and then reacting accordingly, committing to an opinion and a view on, what was being presented on the screen. Within the content, we've tried to include a wide range of workplace environments as well. So we weren't depicting just one setting, so that the young workers can ideally see themselves in it. So we've got scenes, whether it's from manufacturing or warehousing site, retail setting, and we've also got some construction imagery as well. The program includes background information about who WorkSafe is. As we've mentioned, it's really important that they know who WorkSafe is ideally at the start of their working life, because we don't want them to wait till something's gone wrong before then they have to know who we are. We have also highlighted the key people in workplaces, so who it is when they do start working that can help them with the workplace safety needs, what that hierarchy might be within an organisation, and who the key representatives are that might exist in some workplaces like our HSRs, and their people leaders who they can connect with and have the opportunity to speak up. We've also created some classroom activities, 3 in particular, that are available for teachers to then weave into their curriculum and the sessions that they're running, and they may assist to create new discussions. We've got one activity that looks at setting up a workplace, and we ask students to consider what they're going to invest in from an occupational health and safety, and how that might balance out against profits. We've got another activity that's about the identification and management of risks. We've had some great feedback in this space, so really important area for young workers to understand about hazards and risks. And our last one is about speaking up and the things that are unsafe, which our poll is supporting that we're on the mark with that activity as well.
Absolutely, Alicia. So to get this all across to kids, what have we developed as resources and support for teachers, and why?
Yep. So as I mentioned, we've got a range of resources, and the intention with having a variety of assets was teachers can pick and choose what asset is going to work for the curriculum they're developing. They can be really mindful of their student cohort. I know Rowena's referenced that her school has particular needs that they're focusing on. So the assets are there to be used as and how teachers choose to use them. We've got the e-learning modules. There's 3 of those. We've also created PDF versions of those if you need to run a class offline. We didn't want to be dependent on the internet. The modules are also compliant with the Department of Education accessibility requirements as well. So we've made sure that we're meeting all of those expectations. The teachers as well, as I said, there's flexibility. You can move between using e-learning modules, running a classroom activity, connecting the students with one of the 5 videos that we've created that recap certain topics, use them as conversation prompts. It might be also a reflective piece that they go back and go into the content and reflect on what their knowledge is, and where there might be more opportunities to learn more and explore further with the resources that are available through WorkSafe or through the school environment. It's also important to note that the program doesn't replace Safe at Work, which is a mandatory program that's part of the Year 10 Work Experience program. However, there's absolutely opportunities that this will complement that learning and provide avenues for exploring occupational health and safety, whether it's in Year 9 in a commerce-based class, or whether it's part of the vocational majors course, or as just a part of an additional session across any of the subjects that flow between Year 9 to 12.
Thanks, Alicia. I might stay with you just briefly, because that is one of the questions that we're already getting through from our audience today, is how this does run with the Safe at Work program, and how it's different. So just go through that again, and just so everyone at home and our audience does understand the difference between the two.
Yep, definitely. The Safe at Work program is delivered by the Department of Education, and it is a requirement of the Year 10 Work Experience program, and it does go into a lot of detail and prepare young workers in Year 10 for that 1 to 2 week experience that they have. So really vital that they are completing that. However, we know that slicing in some of our content maybe help to elevate some of that content, provide different avenues for the students to engage on top of it, to explore things a bit further, or there might be an issue that you're aware of within the class as they're getting ready, where you want them to look at one of our videos, like the psychosocial video. You might want to look at the mental health a little bit further through one of the activities to prompt some of that discussion. So I think they can complement each other, but we're definitely not replacing Safe at Work.
Good advice. Thanks, Alicia. Back to you now, Rowena. As you mentioned, you've got a very diverse cohort of kids who are participating in WorkSafe 101. And teachers are obviously great at knowing their students well and being resourceful. How has the program met the needs of the teachers in your group?
Thanks for the question, Chris. Yes, we have found the teachers have responded really positively to the program. It's been fantastic because all of the graphics within it are really engaging. The students are really enjoying it. And the teachers have actually worked through the teacher staff modules as well, just to improve their own knowledge. So it's been really helpful.
And personally, Rowena, you found it helpful as well?
I have actually. I worked through the pilot with WorkSafe early on and found it to be really helpful to learn and expand my own knowledge. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Rowena. And Marina, coming to you now, what did you see as the learning outcomes across your students? And just tell us why it's so important that kids know what a hazard is and what to do about it, especially your students.
I think WorkSafe complements what we deliver. We deliver 2 units of competency, and one of them is work health and safety. So the WorkSafe Academy really complements what we are already teaching them. It's a formative learning tool that we use, but it enables the student to really engage because it's quite colourful. There are moving videos, and attention is lost really, really easily in teenagers. So I think that's the biggest thing and a big takeaway with WorkSafe, the program in WorkSafe. And also, I suppose, distinguishing when there is a hazard and a risk is really important. And that's really difficult for students to grasp quite often. So we're seeing them bringing their newfound knowledge into our workspaces and our learning environments where they say, hey, miss, is that a hazard or a risk? Because I want to clarify. So we love that we're seeing already them using this new knowledge. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely, it does, and that's fantastic to hear, Marina. Thank you so much. And Alicia, from a WorkSafe perspective, what are we seeing as the overall benefits to students who have gone through this program?
I think we have got feedback on one of the big benefits the students are acknowledging is that there's a certificate of completion when they get through each of the modules, which is a huge bonus for young workers who haven't had a job yet and are getting ready to put their resume together to kick off their working life in a part-time job or that first step out of high school. So those certificates help to build out and confirm their knowledge in the workplace health and safety perspective. We've also made sure that the content really aligns to defined learning outcomes. We want to be really clear on what it is we're wanting to deliver with this program. So we really, as mentioned, we've aligned the content to ensure that we increase the knowledge of WorkSafe, who we are and the role that we play. Where to find information about safety. We want students to understand how they can help themselves to understand more and raise issues and seek to clarify what it is they think should be happening in the workplace. Understand their rights and responsibilities. That's a really big step in attaining that knowledge. As Marina said, the hazard identification was a big part of this program. We wanted to break down that concept and make sure it was really clear for the learner so that they could come out of the other end and say, yep, I know what I'm talking about when I talk about a hazard. Like, how do I point that out in a workplace? And then, as we've mentioned a few times, that we wanted them to be able to know how to speak up about safety, how to have the confidence to do it, and provide the opportunities for some of those conversations in the school environment about how do you do that and how do you do it in a way that you're confident in raising issues.
And Alicia, have you got some feedback that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, we've got some feedback along the way with this program, which has been fantastic. So I'd love to show a slide now with some of the quotes from some of that feedback. Students, as I said, were brilliant with some candid feedback that we got along the way. There was often call-outs about the animation, the pop-outs, the points in the program where they could engage with the screen. It's not a static program where you just sit and read. There are opportunities to make decisions, click through. We've got references to social media, and they, can make supporting or refuting kind of actions. There's also comments about the recognition of hazards. And I love the fact that a student was, prepared to tell us that it helped them to avoid procrastinating. So that's a huge win when they've been allocated the work to do. And then from the teachers as well, there was acknowledgement on the topics that were included being appropriate for the programs that the teachers were delivering. And also the importance that we placed on the psychosocial hazards, that the bullying content was really of value for that classroom. So it was really positive feedback.
Thanks, Alicia. How can interested teachers register their interest for the next round of WorkSafe 101? Because obviously it looks like it's working well and we should expand it across the state.
Yep, that'd be great. The content's available now, and we have through our website, you can go to the link. It should appear on the screen. Where you can go to our webpage on the WorkSafe website, which will then provide you a link to all of the steps that you need to take to register your class. How we're running that at the moment is we've got a spreadsheet that you can download, input all of your student details, and then email it back to us at worksafe@worksafe.vic.gov.au. And our team will then register the whole class and then send out all the confirmation emails to the students to get them to log in, change their password, and get them started. We're hoping this makes it easier for teachers when you've got your class list sorted. Ideally, give us about a week's notice and we'll get them loaded into the system. And as I said, they'll get a prompt, they'll change their password, and hopefully they'll be ready to go in time for your session. So you can request this at any time. The assets are available now. So definitely love for classes to get enrolled.
Marina, I'll come to you again. Would you have any words of encouragement for other teachers and schooling professionals like yourself if they are interested in WorkSafe 101? Would you say give it a try?
Oh, absolutely. Because I think that what's happening is they're not really ready to go into their first jobs in a safe manner. You've talked already about the fact that they're really awkward when it comes to speaking up. So the more that it's talked about makes it more acceptable for them to speak up. That's one thing. And also, I think that the profile of WorkSafe Victoria and looking at them or regarding them as a friend or somebody who can help them is also beneficial for our students as well.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Marina. I think it's time to take some questions from the chat box and your questions in the audience. Keep them coming through. If you do have a question, you can pop it in the chat and we'll get to it before we end off on the webinar. So the top question that we've got so far, Alicia, I'll throw this one to you. I think we've covered it off a little bit, but the question is the program available in all schools across Victoria?
Yeah, that's been one of the huge bonuses of this program is WorkSafe's been able to make it available to all schools who'd like to register. So it's free. It's being, provided. All you need to do is send us through the registration details. I'd also highly encourage any teachers who are thinking this would be a great opportunity for them to explore. We'd love you to email in yourself. We'll get you registered and you can have a play around in the system, access the assets and see how they'll work with the programs that you're delivering.
And Alicia, I'll stay with you there. The next question is, what are the biggest issues that we are seeing, that WorkSafe is seeing school students face when they do enter the workforce?
I think the current generation of, young workers emerging out of into the workforce, they're really varied. And we've got some very smart cookies who are, taking that step into their first part-time job or stepping into their first working career venture. However, as you mentioned at the start of the session, our biggest challenge is just their lack of lived experience. They're really young and they'd like to have all the answers, but I think every new environment throws a new challenge at them. So I think it's that the challenge of going into each space and knowing, how to work in it safely, making sure they're provided, they're seeking out to be trained and they're educated in that environment. And then, seeking support, because a lot of the hazards are things that can be addressed and, once they're raised. So that's what we're looking to see have happen for all young workers, irrespective of where they're coming from, because they all have that common experience with each new job.
Thanks, Alicia. We've got another question here, which is an interesting one. I'll start with you, Alicia, and we might come to you, Marina. The question is, do we think that there is potentially scope for this or something similar to be rolled out in TAFEs, for example, where the students might be a little bit older, but they still have not so much work experience, but that little bit more life experience? Alicia?
Yep. I think this content is great as an introduction. We very much have pitched this content to that 15 to 18-year-old. We've been really conscious of the language that we've used and how we've broken down the information. So I think as that introductory piece, it is invaluable at all levels. I think obviously in TAFE, there's the opportunity then to segment into more specific industries and particular demands that I don't know whether this program captures, but it definitely gets you started on the right path to know the basics.
Marina, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think where WorkSafe is starting now with the pitch to the year 9s to 12 is really good. But I also think that on our campuses, We get a lot of young learners. We start from 15 years old, and some of them come in maybe after year 12 or a couple of years after year 12, and they still actually have significant gaps in knowing what their rights are, what's safe, what's not. And I've definitely had a recent experience with a young man who just didn't know if he was covered by work cover or not when he was actually getting onboarded as a potential apprentice. So these kinds of issues, the more often that they're raised, the better it's going to be. And so I see, like, if WorkSafe has that room to move and develop some further resources for a slightly older learner, I think that would also be incredibly successful and really useful for us at TAFE level as well. Yeah.
Thanks, Marina. Alicia, another question that's popped up here is, I think a really good one is, does the program require an understanding of the OH&S Act by teachers? So, for example, what would happen if a teacher couldn't answer a particular question that a student might have?
Yep. I don't think you need that background knowledge to deliver this content. I think the way that it's broken down and presented gives you, as I said, that introduction. And I think it's the same for the teachers as well as the students. And I think there's enough references in the content to then go and seek additional information that for those who are wanting to know more, it is definitely a platform to then leap off from and go onto the WorkSafe website to find out more information or to search through other resources to then expand your knowledge. But an in-depth understanding of our OH&S legislation isn't a requirement at all.
Great. Thanks, Alicia. The next question that's popped up is from a vet trainer who believes the program could be valuable for their students who are new to the construction industry. Is the program available to vet students, Alicia?
Yeah, I think we've got an opportunity to explore the use in that space. In that instance, I really appreciate that educator registering to have a look at the content themselves and looking at how they can capitalise on the program they run and how it could enhance it. And because, I think we found with a number of the assets, we've taken the time to really break down the content and make sure that we nail that learning experience with, easy to read content, relatable content. So we'd love for it to be explored in every setting.
And Alicia, how long does the program take to complete, or is it something that students and teachers can go through at their own pace?
It's all self-paced. So teachers, when they look at all of the assets, they can work out which parts of it they'd like to use. They can use all of the assets. That would be brilliant. The e-learning modules, each of them we sort of count for, if we're getting clicks and reads of every screen, they should take about that 15-minute mark. Obviously, some students will go through a bit quicker. Some might want to stop and come back to that, which is fantastic if that's how they reflect on the learning and then maybe have a conversation about it and come back to it.
Alicia, just staying with you, why does WorkSafe think it's so important that our youngest workers are encouraged to speak up about safety issues at work?
I think one of my mantras has been that every day we have a student or a young worker who's old enough to then take on their first job. I think, we are perpetually having new workers come into this space, and it's really important that from the very beginning of their working life and their working journey, they understand how they can stay safe at every turn. Every job has a different set of risks and hazards associated with it. But if we can get to them early to understand some of these basics, it helps then that as they gain more experience, it's easier for them to apply the critical thinking about how do they stay safe as each job they explore and, become more expert in.
Thanks, Alicia. Just another question that's popped up here in terms of specific hazards that the program covers off. Does the course discuss things like gendered violence or sexual harassment as workplace hazards?
We've introduced content in this space, but obviously it's quite a complex space and we haven't gone into all of the detail. I think that would be, something that we could look to in the future. But at the moment, we just wanted to make sure that we had touched on all of aspects of hazards. So we've got the psychosocial hazards in there for sure. But I think there's lots of new learning and new education tools out there to explore this space. And, as I said, we'll definitely earmark that for a future iteration of the program.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Alicia. And thank you, Marina and Rowena, for joining us today. I think we're just about out of questions and just about out of time, but it's been great to get your insights today on this really important program and this really important initiative from WorkSafe Victoria.
Thanks, Chris.
Marina Welch from the Gordon TAFE. Thank you, Marina.
You're most welcome. Thanks.
And Rowena Archer, who's a careers and vet teacher at Braybrook College. Thanks, Rowena.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
And we hope you, the audience, have found this an interesting and informative session. This webinar will be available online via WorkSafe's website next month. And we'll note on the screen shortly a list of the contacts that have been mentioned that you might find helpful. And if you have any requests for further information, please do get in touch. And remember, if there is something that you want to discuss urgently when you're back at work, there is the WorkSafe advisory and emergency lines available to you. Thank you so much for being part of this webinar.